Today we will hear lessons from the Bhagavad Gita by Margaret Biggs. Margot?
Good morning, everybody. I first learned of the Bhagavad Gita about 40 years ago, yet the book sat untouched for many years. When I did finally read it, I was overcome with awe. Deeply moved, it has been one of my favorite spiritual texts for decades now. The Gita has 18 chapters. This talk is focused on chapter 2. The translation of the Bhagavad Gita is simply Song of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita is part of the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata, one of the most important spiritual and literary works in Hindu tradition. The Mahabharata weaves together mythology, philosophy, and moral teachings around a central conflict between two groups of relatives fighting for sovereignty. At the heart of this epic is the Bhagavad Gita, a sacred dialogue that takes place on the battlefield before the war begins. The historical date and even the literal occurrence of this war remain widely debated. For many, the story is understood as a profound spiritual allegory set within historical and mythological frameworks. Arjuna, the central figure of the Gita, is one of 5 heroic brothers known as the Pandavas. Renowned for his mastery of archery, he is traditionally described as the son of the god Indra. In the Bhagavad Gita, the concept of self refers to the person's innermost being or essence. It is the unchanging aspect of the self often equated with Atman. The self is separate from the mind and body and is considered eternal. In the Gita, it is used interchangeably with the word soul. The soul represents the essence of a person that transcends the physical and undergoes the cycles of birth and death, referred to as samsara in Hindu philosophy. Samsara is a cycle of reincarnation. The Bhagavad Gita begins not with victory, but with collapse. Arjuna, one of the greatest warriors of India, stands between 2 armies and is overwhelmed by fear, grief, and doubt. Faced with the unbearable weight of duty and the death of cousins, uncles, teachers, friends, he lowers his bow and says to Krishna, his charioteer, "I cannot fight." Between 2 armies ready to go to battle, time stands still. It is then the dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna begins. Yet Krishna speaks not only to Arjuna, but he also speaks to all of us. All of us feel like giving up sometimes. When we're overwhelmed by responsibilities, when we lose someone that we love, when disappointment is great, when illness or injury overcome us, we just want to put down our bow and walk away. Krishna's first teaching is profound. You are not the temporary body, but the eternal soul. The body changes and dies, but the soul cannot be destroyed. Just as a person changes their clothes, the soul passes from one body to another. Chapter 2, verse 22 reads, "Just as you throw out used clothes and put on other clothes, new ones, the self discards its used bodies and puts on others that are new." This is a Hindu belief in rebirth. In the middle of a war and heartbreak, Krishna shifts Arjuna's focus from the temporary to the eternal. Even science today confirms energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes form. Krishna does not ask Arjuna to escape life. Instead, he teaches him how to live with clarity, discipline, and detachment. How relevant that remains today. We may not stand on a battlefield, but we all face moments where confusion, fear, desire, and inner conflict leave us paralyzed. Krishna's teachings are not locked in ancient history. They speak directly to modern life, to anxiety, distraction, ambition, and emotional exhaustion. One of the most reassuring verses in the Gita is chapter 2, verse 40. It reads, "On this path no effort is wasted. No gain is ever reversed. Even a little of this practice will shelter you from great sorrow." Krishna is not speaking to a young man just beginning his life. He's speaking to someone in the middle of his life, at a moment of despair. Arjuna feels incapable of moving forward, and yet this point becomes a doorway to his transformation. What we call starting late may be starting with a wisdom that earlier version of ourselves did not yet possess. There may be greater depth and clarity, or courage may have developed that only comes after loss. On this path, no effort is ever wasted. Not the years of struggle or the many failed dreams. Not the inner work we did for so long that was just enough to keep us going. In this passage, we are reminded that whenever doubt overwhelms you, remember that every hardship, every experience, and every moment spent as we seek purpose, fulfillment, equanimity, and peace becomes a part of our awakening. No sincere effort is ever lost. Verse 41 in chapter 2 reads, "Resolute understanding is single-pointed, Arjuna, but the thoughts of the irresolute are many-branched and endless." Here, Krishna speaks of the focused mind, which he contrasts with the many-branched or scattered mind, a mind that is pulled in countless directions at once. He describes a person with too many goals, endless distractions, and countless unfinished beginnings. How many dreams have we abandoned because our attention was divided? How often do we mistake constant movement for progress? Krishna's answer is not more effort, it is focused awareness, a one-pointed mind, a life aligned with a deeper purpose. The life we want is not waiting for more busyness, it is waiting for our complete attention. Another powerful teaching in chapter 2 is verses 47 through 50, which reads, "You have a right to your actions, but never to your actions' fruits. Act for action's sake, and do not be attached to inaction. Self-possessed, resolute, act without any thought of results, open to success or failure. This equanimity is yoga." Action is far inferior to the yoga of insight, Arjuna. Pitiful are those who, acting, are attached to their actions' fruits. The wise man lets go of all results, whether good or bad, and is focused on the action alone. Yoga is skill in action. Krishna is teaching Arjuna to act without attachment to a success or failure. Perform your duty without becoming obsessed with the result. We're only responsible for the effort we make. We cannot control the outcome. When action is offered in this spirit, work becomes worship. We can choose our actions, intentions, and our discipline. We can work with integrity, but we cannot control the results of our actions. Life is influenced by countless things. There's timing, circumstance, other people, world events. Suffering begins when we become attached to results, when we are concerned that our work will be rejected, that our project will fail, or that we will not get what we want or think we deserve. That attachment creates anxiety, fear, anger, and disappointment. Krishna is not saying that we should quit caring about the results of our efforts. He asks us to do our best and be courageous, but don't make our inner peace dependent on success or failure. This teaching is about freedom. When you've released your obsession with outcomes, action becomes clearer and more powerful. You are no longer paralyzed by fear or failure or inflated by your successes. You become steady. For an artist, the verse can mean, create because you are called to create, not for praise, sales, or recognition. For someone facing hardship, it can mean, take the next right step, even when there is no guarantee the result will be what you wish for. Krishna is teaching disciplined action and wholehearted effort without interdependence or attachment to the reward. It is one of the central teachings of the Gita. It transforms action from anxiety into action as devotion. Arjuna then asked Krishna a timeless question. Verse 54 reads, "How would you describe a person whose wisdom is steadfast, Krishna? How does the wise man speak? How does he sit, stand, or walk? He whose mind is untroubled by any misfortune, whose craving for pleasure has disappeared, who is free from greed, fear, anger, who is unattached to all things, who neither grieves nor rejoices if good or bad things happen, that man is a man of firm wisdom. Having drawn back all his senses from the objects of the sense, as a tortoise draws back into its shell, That man is a man of firm wisdom. Krishna is describing a person who is no longer ruled by continuous desires, by praise or insult, by victory or defeat. Like a tortoise withdrawing its legs into its shell, a person of wisdom can withdraw their senses from temptations and impulses. Arjuna asked Krishna this question because he wants to understand what spiritual wisdom looks like in a person. Krishna's answer describes someone whose inner stability no longer depends on external circumstances. A person of steady wisdom is not ruled by constant desires or impulses. She does not collapse in sorrow or become elated by success. She is calm when praised or criticized, when he wins or when he loses. He or she acts with clarity rather than with emotional reactivity. The person of wisdom is inwardly fulfilled, not constantly seeking validation from the outside world. When Krishna says such a person can withdraw senses like a tortoise withdrawing its limbs, he means they are not enslaved by every craving, distraction, or emotional trigger. They have mastery over themselves. This doesn't mean they become cold, emotionless, or detached from life. It means their peace comes from something deeper than temporary experiences. How do they speak? Their words are thoughtful, truthful, and not driven by ego, by the need to impress, or by anger. How do they live? With balance, self-awareness, discipline, compassion, and devotion. They still act in the world, but they're no longer constantly shaken by it. Arjuna is asking, what does it look like to become whole? And Krishna's answer is that wisdom is not just knowledge. It's an inner steadiness, a freedom from being controlled by fear, desire, anger, or the endless turbulence of the mind. The teaching is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming anchored. Krishna also warns of the opposite path. Chapter 2, verse 62 to 66 reads, "If a man keeps dwelling on sense objects, attachment to them arises. From attachment, desires flare up. From desire, anger is born. From anger, confusion follows. From confusion, weakness of memory. Weak understanding, ruin. But the man who is self-controlled, who meets the objects of the senses with neither craving or aversion, will attain serenity at last. In serenity, all his sorrows disappear at once, forever. When his heart has become serene, his understanding is steadfast. The undisciplined have no wisdom, no one-pointed concentration. With no concentration, no peace. With no peace, where can joy be?" Chapter 2 ends with Krishna describing a person of wisdom, one who is without desire, who is selfless, has no cravings, and who is calm, even in the face of death. This is the divine state, Arjuna. This is why the Bhagavad Gita still resonates after thousands of years. Using an ancient battlefield as an operating metaphor, this poem speaks of the battlefield which is within each one of us. Whenever we are confused or afraid, lost in attachment or craving, full of doubt or sorrow, Krishna reminds us, you are not merely your body, you are an eternal soul. You will never die, you are steady, you are free. And from this understanding, act. Thank you.